Anyway, The Robber Bridegroom is the story we're reading today. Um, I don't know about this particular one, but I've definitely read a lot of fairy tales that are in this trope. So I'm sure it's going to be as bonkers as usual. Let's give it a go. The Robber Bridegroom. There was once a miller who had a beautiful daughter. A lot of these stories start with a miller who has a beautiful daughter. Have you noticed that? There are a lot of millers floating around and they all seem to have beautiful daughters. There was once a miller who had a beautiful daughter. When she came of age to be married, he thought he should look out for a suitable husband for her. If anyone respectable comes along, he said to himself, I'll give her to him. Word got around. That was my feminist look just then. Word got around, and before long a gentleman appeared to ask about this beautiful daughter. The miller interviewed him, found no fault with him, and promised that he could marry her. However, the daughter didn't take to him at all. There was something about him she didn't trust, and what's more, whenever she thought about him, or heard his name mentioned, she felt her heart contract with horror. One day the prospective bridegroom said to her, You know, my dear, we're engaged to be married, but you've never paid me a visit. Why not come to my house? After all, it will soon be your own home. I don't know where your house is, the girl said. It's out in the forest, he told her. A beautiful situation, you'll see. I already hate this guy. I don't think I'll ever be able to find my way there, she said. No, you must come, on Sunday. I've already invited some guests. They're looking forward to meeting you. I'll make a trail of ashes so you can follow it through the trees. I know, right? It seems totally legit. On Sunday, the girl felt an awful foreboding. She'd rather do anything than set off through the woods to the bridegroom's house. She filled her pockets with peas to mark the trail in case anything happened. At the edge of the forest she found the trail of ashes, and after every step she threw a couple of peas to left and right. She walked almost the whole day till she came to a part of the forest where the trees grew so thick and high that it was dark underneath them. And there, right in the heart of the woods, she found the bridegroom's house. Hey, Moosloon! It was dark and silent and seemed to be deserted. There was no one inside but a bird in a cage, and he was no comfort either, because all he could sing was, Turn back! Get out! Go home! Take care! This is a murderer's house! Beware! I feel like when a bird in a cage sings that to you, you should just, leave now. She looked up at the bird and said, Can't you tell me any more than that, little bird? I feel like that's a lot of information. The bird sang again, Turn back, get out, go home, take care. This is a murderer's house. Beware. The bride wandered from one room to another, but she didn't see anyone till she went down to the cellar. There she found a very old woman, sitting by the light of a fire, shaking her head. Please can you tell me if my bridegroom lives here? Said the girl. Oh, you poor child, replied the old woman. Why ever did you come to this house? It's a den of murderers. What's the old woman doing there, then? You talk of a bridegroom. The only bridegroom you'll be marrying is death. See this big pot of water on the fire? They made me set it there to boil. When they turn up, they're going to chop you in pieces and throw you in the pot, cook you till you're tender, and eat you all up. They're a pack of cannibals. Now I've taken pity on you because you're a poor innocent thing, and besides, you've got a pretty face. Come over here. This woman is really fucking weird. The old woman led her behind a large barrel, where she was out of sight from the rest of the cellar. Stay there and don't make a sound, she said. If they hear you, that's the end of you. When they're asleep later on, we'll escape. I know, right? This woman doesn't seem a lot better. Although I will say that if there's one thing fairy tales teach you, it's that you should always be nice to little old women, right? Because they're always the ones who are going to pull you out of the shit when it comes right down to it. No sooner had she said this than the band of murderers came home, dragging with them another girl whom they'd captured. She screamed and sobbed, but they were drunk, and took no notice of her pleas for mercy. They forced her to drink a glass of red wine, then one of white, and then one of yellow. And the third one was too much for her. Her heart burst apart. After 3 glasses of wine? Girl. Then they tore off her fine... This is getting very gross. Then they tore off her fine clothes and laid her on the table before chopping her in pieces and sprinkling her with salt. The poor bride-to-be behind the barrel trembled in every limb, seeing what fate the murderers had in mind for her. Then one of them saw a gold ring on the dead girl's finger. He took an axe and chopped the finger off, but it flew in the air and right over the barrel and into the bride's lap. He couldn't see where it had gone, so he took a light and looked for it. This is like the dude from the other tale who ended up sleeping. Yeah, right? Killed demon cats and couldn't find the shivers. Yep. This is clearly a dark one with cannibalism. And yeah, so far no demon cats though. What a lovely home indeed. Yes, so the finger flew over into the bride's lap. He couldn't see where it had gone, so he took a light and looked for it. Another murderer said, "Look behind the big barrel. I think it went over there." But the old woman called out, "Come and eat your supper. The finger won't run away. You can find it in the morning." "She's right," said the others. And they pulled up chairs and sat down to eat. The old woman poured a sleeping draught in their wine, so that before they'd even finished eating, they all slumped to the floor and fell asleep. When the bride heard them snoring, she crept out from behind the barrel. She had to step over the sleeping murderers where they all lay on the cellar floor. She was terribly afraid she'd step on one and wake him up. "Dear God, help me," she whispered, and she got to the cellar steps safely, where the old woman was waiting. They crept upstairs, opened the door, and hurried out as fast as they could. It was as well that the girl had brought peas to throw on the ground, because the ashes that showed the path had all blown away. The peas had sprouted, though. That was quick. And in the moonlight they could see them and followed the trail all the way to the mill, where they arrived just as the sun was rising. The girl told her father everything that had happened, from beginning to end, and the old woman confirmed it. When the wedding day arrived, "I feel like Daddy should have done something about this really smartly and not waited for the wedding day. I'm just saying, fathers suck in fairy tales. Have you noticed that? Holy shitballs. The last one chopped his daughter's hands off because he was a frickin' coward." Anyway. When the wedding day arrived, the bridegroom appeared, smiling all round and being pleasant to everyone. The miller had invited all his relations and all his friends, and they were impressed by this handsome, friendly man. As they sat down to eat, each guest was asked to tell a story. The bride said nothing at all as they listened to the stories going around the table, and finally the bridegroom said, "Come on, my darling, haven't you got a story to tell? Just tell us something." It's like they never took a parenting class. Seriously. Although I feel like if you need a parenting class to tell you that it's a bad idea to chop your daughter's hands off, you probably shouldn't be a parent. So she said, "All right, I'll tell you about a dream I had. I was walking in the forest when I came to a dark house. There wasn't a soul in sight. There was only a little bird in a cage that said, 'Turn back, get out, go home, take care. This is a murderer's house, beware.' It said that twice, but my dear heart, it was only a dream. I went through all the rooms, and although there was no one there, something was uncanny about the place. Finally, I went down to the cellar, where I found an old woman shaking her head. I said to her, 'Does my bridegroom live in this house?' She said, 'Alas, poor child, you're in the house of a murderer. Your bridegroom does live here, but he's going to chop you into pieces and cook you and eat you.'" Poor Sparrowhawk. He's got to put it together from comments. That's pretty funny. It was taught by the murderers in the lovely home. Yeah, I guess so. The other thing that bothers me is like he invited her and insisted that she come to visit on that Sunday and then just didn't notice that she never showed up, right? He seems like a very controlling man. I feel like he would have noticed and said something about the fact that she didn't show up when he told her that she totally had to. Anyway. "Your bridegroom does live here, but he's going to chop you into pieces and cook you and eat you." "That isn't so," said the bridegroom. Oh, well, that clears that up. "Dear heart, don't worry, it was only a dream. The old woman hid me behind a great big barrel, and as soon as I was there, the robbers came back, dragging a poor girl with them, screaming and pleading for mercy. They forced her to drink 3 glasses of wine, 1 red, 1 white, and 1 yellow, and that made her heart burst apart, so she died." "That isn't so, and it wasn't so," cried the bridegroom. "Dear heart, sit still, it was only a dream. They took off her fine clothes, laid her on the table, and chopped her to pieces and sprinkled salt on them." "That isn't so, and it wasn't so, and God forbid it should be so," shouted the bridegroom. "Dear heart, stay where you are. It was only a dream." Then one of the robbers saw a gold ring on the poor girl's finger. He took an axe and chopped it off, and the finger flew through the air and landed in my lap. And here is that finger, with the ring." With those words she held up the finger and the ring so that everyone could see. The bridegroom, who'd become as white as a chalk, leapt up and tried to escape, but the guests seized him and held him tight, and then marched him to the court. Soldiers were sent out to capture the rest of the band, and they were all put to death for their wicked deeds. The end.